like to open the June 3rd school committee meeting. This meeting is being held virtually through Zoom. The town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. One concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to a board's public meeting. Chat is essentially running commentary that is occurring, but it is not moderated or followed by the chair. All participants and listeners may not be aware of comments being made because some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room, which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you called in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion, we ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request the participant return their microphone back to mute. Okay. All right. We have a consent agenda from May 20th, 2021, and oath to bills and payroll.
Make a motion to accept the oath to bills and payroll and the minutes from, the previous meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Timlin Rassius.
Timlin Rassius, yes.
Brad Austin.
Brad Austin, yes.
Jen Gold.
Jen Gold, yes.
Justin McCarthy.
Justin McCarthy, yes.
And Matt Hunt votes yes as well. Okay, we had our agenda. This is our first opportunity for interested citizens. If anyone has any comments or questions.
Do not have any raised hands.
Okay. We flipped typically we would start with old business, but we're going to start with new business tonight. And we're going, because I know a lot of people are probably tuning in for this. We're going to start with the DESE 2021-2022 preliminary opening requirements. And Dr. Clenchey will discuss the updated DESE preliminary opening requirements.
Thanks, Matt. Dorothy, could you put that page up, please?
Steve, do you want to pop up your school committee and scroll it, please?
You even used the word pop and
I
didn't work.
did. I did. Page 14, Steve. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. So at the tail end of last week, DESE released some preliminary opening guidelines for start of the next school year. And within those guidelines, they state that all schools will be required to be in person full-time, 5 days a week, and all DESE health and safety requirements will be lifted. This includes all physical distancing requirements. DESE encourages schools to maintain ventilation upgrades from the past year as feasible. And they obviously recommend to continue hygiene practices and extend policies that encourage students and staff to stay home when sick. Over the summer, DESE will continue to collaborate with the Department of Public Health to issue any other health and safety recommendations. One thing that they're still trying to figure out is whether or not they will require students to wear masks at the elementary grade levels. As you all know, at this point in time, the vaccination program has not dipped down into our younger elementary students. There is some promise that this will be happening sometime during the summer, which will certainly help frame the guidelines that they will be presenting to us prior to the start of school. Another major change is that districts will no longer be able to offer remote learning as a standard learning model, which means there will be no remote model. We do, however, like most high schools, offer virtual classes to students at the high school and to a few students at the middle school through VHS. The high school, our high school students also have the opportunity to take virtual classes with Middlesex College. Pretty brief summary, but certainly encompasses some significant changes for the upcoming year. We're definitely moving in a positive direction.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Clenchey. Is there any questions from school committee or comments? Waiting. Brad, go ahead.
I'm surprised they came out this early, but I think this is what we were all hoping to where we were all hoping to land at the end. So let's just hope our trends keep moving in the right direction. So I'm very encouraged by this. That's it.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Brad. We've all been waiting a long time for this to start happening, and certainly the strategies that we used throughout the year were very successful, and with the amazing work that our scientists have done both nationally and internationally in producing a vaccine or vaccines more correctly to help eradicate COVID-19. We're in a much better spot right now, and it's a good feeling. So it's nice to be able to say that there is truly a light at the end of that tunnel, and we're certainly moving back to pre-COVID days.
I guess, Matt, I'm sorry I misspoke. I do have one other question. Last time when we were organizing the school committee and we were kind of putting people in committees, I was assigned and volunteered for the reopening task force in anticipation that we would be making some of these decisions at the local level over the coming months. This may negate the need for a reopening task force, but I would also argue that it's probably useful that we have some sort of body to meet as a community or as a district or leadership level, at least, to think about, you know, what we learned. We've talked about how individual schools, I know Ms. Temple talked about this in the last time, we talked about, and we as a school committee have talked about what we've learned and what we'd like to keep, and that might be useful for a task force, or at least some sort of structure to have a conversation. But also we need to kind of reflect on what this year did to our students and to our staff and how we can respond proactively to that moving forward. So I don't know if, you know, if Dr. Clenchey or other people think we still need a task force, but I do hope we have some way to have a kind of structured conversation about what we learned from this year and what we need to do to support our students and staff moving forward.
Brad, I think we do need to keep the task force intact. I mean, again, these are preliminary opening regulations or requirements at this point in time. Things may change. Hopefully they don't. And I mean, the good thing is we're ready for anything. We have well-developed alternate learning models with our hybrid and remote learning models. And we really do need to spend some time reflecting, and that'll certainly be something that will happen in late August or early September. And I think bringing that group back together and having those conversations certainly is warranted.
final word is I do think the structure we had with community and parental input, as well as hearing from teachers and administrators, I thought that worked really well last year. I really benefited as a school committee member from hearing from different perspectives. And as we're, again, reflecting on what worked, the parent and family voice, and what the concerns are, the parent and family voice, I think will continue to be important.
For sure.
Thanks, Brett. I would agree. I think, a lot of positive things coming from that announcement. I think this is where we're been hoping to get to. Obviously, we'll have to see what the advice is with the younger kids as we go forward. But at this point, does anyone in the audience have any questions for school committee or Dr. Clenchey?
I don't see any raised hands or, no.
Okay. My apologies. I skipped recognition. So Dr. Clenchey, is there any recognition this week?
Thanks, Matt. Yes, there is. With great pleasure, I'm able to announce that Dave Riley, our school district energy manager, is a recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award presented by the national organization called Project Green Schools. Dave Riley has been instrumental helping our district cut costs in terms of all energy costs, reduce our carbon footprint, and we've been recognized nationally a couple of times for setting an example not only in the state of Massachusetts but throughout our nation. So very proud of Dave's work, and certainly would like to congratulate him on behalf of the administrative team and our school community. Interestingly enough, Dave Riley has been with Littleton Public Schools for a significant number of years. I found out today that we all know Dave used to teach at Littleton Public Schools for a number of years, retired, and we hired him back as the district energy manager. But he is now approaching year 50 with us, 50. So very impressive. He does an incredible job. I have to tell you, doesn't matter whether it's winter or summer or spring, I always see him combing around on the roofs still every year, looking for ways that we're not retaining heat in our buildings and making sure everything's sealed up, and works very closely with our town in terms of applying, and we've been very successful at receiving energy grants, and we're very thankful that Dave is still working with us, and 50 years. That's just incredible. And Dave is actually with us tonight. So congratulations, Dave. Next recognition, a real obvious one. I'd like to congratulate our senior class and wish them the very best as they continue their life journeys. As all of you have heard by now, the weather tomorrow night is questionable, and as a result, Dr. Harrington, in consultation with myself and other individuals that are weather savvy, so to speak, decided to use our rain date. So graduation will be tomorrow, Saturday, January 5th, and ceremonies will begin at 10:30 a.m. Mrs. Steele also has an acknowledgement this evening, and she's going to recognize our high school seal of biliteracy.
Thank you, Dr. Clenchey. Yes, I'm very happy to announce that some of our students at the high school earned the Massachusetts State Seal of Biliteracy. We heard about this a couple weeks ago when Liz Kelly, our World Language Curriculum Coordinator, spoke to us about the Seal of Biliteracy. And so she shared this information with us, and I'm happy to pass along the very good news with all of you this evening. So in order to earn the seal, the requirements are twofold. One, to demonstrate a level of intermediate high on an approved proficiency exam in a language other than English. And number two, earning at least the equivalent of proficient on the ELA MCAS. And so in French, we have Simon Huyn, who has earned the seal. In Latin, we have Alexandra or Sasha Pavlov, Tanya Rizzi, Natasha Toomey, Caitlin Yendick, and Ruthie Zhang. And in Spanish, we have Emma Bussier. And then we actually have two additional to recognize. There is the Massachusetts State Seal of Biliteracy, which those students that I just listed off earned that actually. And we have two students who earned the Massachusetts State Seal of Biliteracy with distinction. And this is actually earning at a higher level of proficiency. And for those two, we have in Latin, Eleanor Hood, and then in Russian, Sasha Pavlov. So congratulations to all of those students who earned that very high level and distinct honor, as well as the teachers who worked hard, especially given the year, to make sure the students had the proficiency level to be able to achieve there. So congratulations to all of those people.
Is that all we have for recognitions, Kelly?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right, where'd he go? I was gonna say, Mr. Riley, and that's what I always call him. He was my 6th grade teacher 30 years ago. And I don't know if I just ran in to grab this thing, if you can see.
Let me see.
Here he is.
I'll pop him back up.
There's Mr. Riley, right there, 1990. What?
He left.
Oh, he left me? Oh,
Yeah, I don't know where he went, so
so much for that.
I tried to bring him back in.
All right, let's go back. All right, so we're next going to move on to health metrics. And so I can present this and we'll do a little update. Katrina is unable to be with us tonight. She has a library trustee meeting, so you get to have me. Not as good, but I'll do my best. All right. So I should... All right, tell me if this is working, because I've never shared on a Zoom. I always do Google Meets.
It's working.
Okay. All right. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so the COVID-19 health metrics for June 3rd, 2021, I was told these are very promising numbers. So we'll start with the state data. Here. So here are the 4 main metrics for the state. We continue to have encouraging signs. The 7-day average of COVID cases continues to decline, lower than last summer. Test positivity has declined to 0.7%. Hospitalizations have been on the decline, similar level to the end of September 2020. Deaths are stable at less than 10 per day. And statewide vaccinations are 67% of all residents of all ages have received at least 1 dose. So we're doing really good there. Okay. So COVID-19 cases by age group. So here we see the case rates continue to be the highest among people aged 10 to 14, followed by people aged 5 to 9 and 20 to 29. All age groups have seen a decline in rates over the past 6 weeks as more people have become vaccinated. The rate of decline slowed significantly over the last 2-week period among people aged 30 to 59 years. That's not something to get worried about, just something to keep our eyes on in the coming weeks, given people in this age bracket are typically parents and the preponderance of household spread. Okay, now we get to the Littleton data. Okay. So 2 weeks ago, Littleton had 11 cases over the first 2 weeks of May. Littleton had 4 cases between May 16th and May 29th. That puts us in the gray for the 2nd week in a row, so we should all be very happy about that. All right. So This is the average daily incident rate per 100,000 people for the last 14 days. The data is through 5/29/21 for all the areas we have been tracking. So Littleton's rate at 2.9 per 100,000 is lower than it was 2 weeks ago. The state, county, and surrounding areas that we track also continued to trend lower. Okay. Here's the total test positivity graph through May 29th. Littleton's test positivity was lower than 2 weeks ago. Now 0.72% for the last 2 week period. All areas we track have test positivity of less than 1%. All right. So 73% of Littleton residents, all ages, have received at least one dose. 61% fully vaccinated, so we're above the state average there. 65% of Littleton's 12 to 15-year-olds have received at least one dose in the first 3 weeks of eligibility. 75% of people aged 16 to 19 have received at least one dose. All right. So here are the health notification letters. There's been one health notification letter this week, Russell Street School, 0 last week. Lynn Snow can provide an update on pool testing if desired. Anything to report there, Lynn?
Nope, still holding strong with no positive pools.
Excellent. All right, and then just the reminder to keep children home if they show symptoms of COVID-19. As we move into the next phase of COVID reopenings, symptom checks return as an important tool to prevent COVID from entering public settings. CDC continues to advise symptomatic individuals, kids, adults, vaccinated or unvaccinated, to stay home and seek COVID testing. This is an important way that we can continue to protect the schools, camps, workplaces, and kid activities. Just a reminder, the COVID-19 vaccine is free. People age 12 plus who live, work, or study here can get vaccinated against COVID-19. The vaccine is safe and effective. You don't need an ID or insurance to get it. People ages 12 to 17 can receive the Pfizer vaccine. People age 18 and older can receive any vaccine. And you can find a location using VaxFinder, Mass.gov. All right. No Swiss cheese model this week, but I think you all know that we want to still have some of those mitigation strategies in place, though in the schools, like I said, the only ones that we're really keeping in place at this time is the masks, and I think hopefully we'll see some improvement there for the fall. All right. Okay, any questions? Brad?
No, I'll just give you a thumbs up.
Oh, thank you. I
You
appreciate
did
it.
well.
Good job,
Not
Matt.
Katrina well, but still.
No, it's definitely not Katrina well, but she did a good job putting together the presentation, and no, she's missed. But the other thing is, I was talking to Katrina, and the goal is hopefully that we can start to phase Katrina out as things get positive, because this is a lot of work for her. As long as we are in a this low area here, we seem to be in good space. I think that I will be seeing less and less of Katrina, but she's definitely going to give us a hand when we need it. So we appreciate all that she's done this year, just out of the kindness of her heart. Donated her time, and it's a lot of work putting all those slides together. So it is much appreciated. Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience, Dorothy? Any hands?
I'm muted. I don't see any raised hands, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to PTA presentation. We have Rebecca Lewis here to present. So if you want to turn the screen over to her, find out what she has to tell us.
All right, thank you very much. I'll go to the next slide. Yeah, we can go to the next one. The Wilton PTA is pleased to be able to support the Wilton Public Schools with the tremendous support of our local families who generously donate their time, money, and resources to the PTA. This year we have 169 members of Wilton PTA. This includes 26 staff and 143 families. These membership numbers are down. Can you go to the next slide, Dorothy? Thanks. These membership numbers are down compared to previous years, most likely due to the pandemic. In past years, we have sent out paper forms for signing up to the PTA through Shaker Lane and Russell Street, which is where most of our membership is. And this year we were not able to do that, or didn't want to do that with the pandemic, adding more paper work going to families. So we just use electronic forms, which worked well, but as I said, the numbers are down. So we're hopeful that next year things will go up. Overall, we donated, oh, you can stay on that slide. Overall, we have donated approximately $40,000 this year across all of our schools, focusing on providing equipment and supplies for teachers, helping support field trips and special programming for students, holding community events, and showing our amazing Wilton Public Schools staff our appreciation for all that they are doing for our students. This year, we especially feel the need to provide some opportunities to lift the spirits with some fun and treats. We'll talk a little bit about what we did. In addition, this year, we provided 2 scholarships to graduating LHS students. In the past, we supported 1 scholarship, but given that we've had some surplus that we've been carrying forward for a few years, we've decided to allocate more towards scholarships moving forward. And so we'll be giving out 2 scholarships per year for the next number of years. In addition, PTA allocated some funds from our general fund to support the installation of a water bottle filling station at the high school. Additional funds for that filling station were raised by the PTA through a raffle that was advertised for all of our membership. Go to the next slide, Dorothy. Shaker Lane PTA, which is one of our most active schools, decided not to have any fundraisers this year, or true fundraisers, but a few times throughout the year put out a wish list and asked families to contribute, and families stepped up and were amazing with these contributions. While most of our normal events and traditionally funded items were canceled, there were some new needs and requests with all of the COVID restrictions, and we were able to step up and help with those. Additionally, we held the Shaker Lane PTA held some special events for students, including a virtual story time where teachers read their favorite books on a Friday night. We had 36 staff volunteer to read and over 150 families participate. A virtual dance party on Zoom where students were able to dance off some energy, and glow sticks were given out so they could show off to their friends. We also had a virtual take on the Winterfest, which there were multiple virtual rooms that students could switch between and go do a Stuff a Shaky, like a Build-A-Bear kind of event, and watch a magic show, have some more dancing. And then some book fairs. Similarly to how we do every year, we had a Scholastic Fall Book Fair where the proceeds went to the library for Shaker Lane School. And then making sure that classroom teachers each got a book from their wish list. And then in the spring, we supported a local bookstore, Silver Unicorn, and did our book fair through that, with proceeds going to the reading specialists and Shakey's Imaginatorium at Shaker Lane. Also did a bit of classroom enrichment supplies with some virtual class presentations and field trips for K, first, and second grade classes. Bought a computer program for some visuals for preschool, bought some gym equipment, and a pop-up tent to make some outdoor gatherings more comfortable for students, and lots of markers, particularly Expo markers, not surprisingly. And then finally, really trying to do some staff appreciation, including stocking staff lounge with drinks and snacks that they could bring back to their classroom and eat safely. Also doing a welcome back to full in-person snacks and drinks for the staff, and a teacher appreciation lunch this spring. And I also just mentioned under community, we have a few things where these were the organizations that we did, as well as tried to keep some of our normal events with the second grade clap off shirts for students. Next slide. For Russell Street, with the invaluable support of families, the Russell Street PTA provided a number of wonderful opportunities for the Russell Street community, including an amazing Big Hero art presentation and painting that's now displayed in the school, poetry workshops, and virtual field trips. The outdoor classroom also got a new board installed that was paid for by the PTA. And PTA provided staff with equipment and supplies to enrich classroom learning, including some science supplies, art supplies for remote students, and again, lots of expo markers. Killing with those things. So while some things remain the same with Russell Street PTA, such as providing shirts for the end of the year for 5th grade students, we also added some new activities, including a virtual dance party at the Russell Street School, since it went so well at the Shaker Lane. PT also purchased some book fair books and yearbooks for families that could not afford to purchase them, and showed our deep appreciation for the staff at the school with back to school snacks and gift cards in the fall, a teacher appreciation lunch this spring, and some snack days throughout the year, which the PTA organized, but which we just asked families to donate the drinks and treats for. Slide. The middle school, get to make an appearance here. We organized some t-shirts for all staff, which students were also able to purchase. Thank you, Jason, for modeling that. We also did a welcome gift for Matt Labanji, who joined as assistant principal this year. For 8th grade students, did the customary Hershey bars with customized wrappers for all the students that will be given out at 8th grade recognition. And the PTA will be funding food for the 8th grade carnival celebration. We also did a number of staff appreciation events, including a Cookie Monster truck that was done with the high school as well, and a Cinco de Mayo themed lunch with handmade gifts donated by parents, as well as goodie bags, and some teacher requests, primarily subscriptions to help allow students who were participating remotely be able to participate more fully in their lessons. Then for the high school, next slide, the PTA there has been happy to support the community with contributions including customized water bottles for the seniors, a new microwave, and classroom supplies for teachers. These little pick-me-ups that are pictured were handed out to the seniors. And then for the staff, did some teacher appreciation gift bags, a luncheon, and is planning to host a PTA, an ice cream social for the staff on the last day of classes. And finally, the PTA has provided some volunteer support for the senior send-off. That is it.
Great, thanks, Rebecca. I know it's was obviously a very strange year, and I think that you guys have adapted well, being able to do a lot of the things, obviously not being able to have some of your fundraisers that you count on was difficult, but I appreciate the ingenuity you guys showed. And I don't know if you know this, but I am actually a Winterfest legend.
I'm not surprised.
I am. I used to clean up at the cakewalk and the raffles, but they don't allow me to get in there anymore. I guess if I don't have kids, they said I couldn't go. But
it's only a little weird. Don't worry.
I don't know. But anyone from the school committee have any questions or comments for Rebecca?
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you. As a parent and as a new school committee member, I appreciate everything you and your folks do tremendously, especially the staff recognition stuff. I mean, I can only thank our teachers, as much as I can, but you guys do that on a much bigger level, and I think I and all parents really appreciate that so much. So thank you, Rebecca, for what you guys do and for a great presentation.
Thank you.
I'll just, Rebecca, thanks again. I'll just echo those same words. I think we're very lucky to have such an active and wonderful PTA, and I think there's great collaboration between the staff and the PTA as well, and want to recognize that. So if there's anything that we can do for you folks going forward to sort of use the school committee platform to help you get the word out, feel free to come back. Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right. Dorothy, anyone in the audience have any hands up? No, we're good. All right. Thanks, Rebecca. Well,
Thank you.
until next time. All right. Next on our agenda is the Wilton Youth Lacrosse Storage Shed. So Steve Markin is going to give us a little update on this along with JR Tito. So
Yes, thank you. It's really JR's show, so I'll turn it over to him. But we were approached by Littleton Youth Lacrosse a couple months ago about additional storage over near Alumni Field. We think it's a good idea, so we worked out a location, and from here, JR, I'll turn it over to you. You can make your presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And Matt, appreciate your time. Give me some time here. I know a lot of people on this call, but some I don't. So JR Tito, Littleton, 21 years now. I just realized it's this month, so happy anniversary to me. I'm the president of Youth Lacrosse, and I've been that for, it feels like 100 years, but I think it's like 5, something like that. And for those of you who I know are coaching, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is one of those things where we didn't know if we'd need you, to be honest with you. We've been stealing back to when Mike Crory, Matt Pinard, and I found an old crappy shed in the back of the middle school. And we've been putting our stuff into that storage container, which, belongs on a ship. And we got away with that for a long period of time until the mice decided they were going to win out. And so they did. And they ate most of our stuff, and the rat infestation was pretty bad. So we actually relocated to a private storage facility in Littleton. And we've been doing that in an okay way, for the last few years. And we obviously wanted to see alumni progress and mature before we really thought about coming back and actually asking for some storage. But I think we're at that time. So the project itself is nothing massive. I worked with Mike Lynn on this one. I sent him a lot of pictures. Steve has been incredibly helpful. Chuck DeCosta, a whole bunch of other people. I just got some input from just to see if we were correct in the way we were thinking about this. But the price of that private storage right now is prohibitive. And when we spend upwards of $1,000 a month to store lacrosse balls and sticks, that takes away from the kids program, frankly. And we are one of the least expensive lacrosse programs in the area. We actually pride ourselves on that because we just want as many kids to play as they possibly can. So including the free sticks, right? So project background is that. The scope is pretty simple. We're looking for about 168-ish square feet, 10 by 12, 14 by 16, what have you, on the maximum side. Yeah, thanks for blowing that up a little bit. And we took a long time and worked with Steve, and I told you, Mike and others, on where to put it, right? So it's not difficult to erect a shed. It's where do you put it so it's not in a bad place for alumni. If you think of Littleton Youth Lacrosse, so we play between 3 fields. The middle school, we play a lot on the turf, right? And then we play also in between the track field where a lot of the girls play. I just came from the field tonight. They're completely packed with every single kid you could possibly imagine. And we're actually pinched on space, believe it or not. It's a whole different subject. But for us, we thought, what would be perfect for a sort of an equidistant place between those 3 fields? And what we thought was kind of where we came from, right? And that was back towards that storage facility, that large container. It's really out of the way. Most people don't even know it's there, frankly. It's just far enough to make the coaches, or to allow the coaches to get some gear and get over to the middle school for the U9 kids, to get to the track for the U13 kids, and the U15 kids, which play predominantly on the turf. So it's almost smack dab in the middle. It's right where we have our stuff today that's still existent. And that's where also we keep the lacrosse nets too. So we don't need a massive facility here, right? We're just talking about something that's sort of tucked out of the way. Incidentally, for what it's worth, we did look, like if you look at baseballs today, right? It's right near the baseball diamond, next to the small set of bleachers, inside that turf perimeter, if you will, right? There's ample amount of space, in my opinion, to put it there, but it's really not needed. I would save that space for whatever you guys need in the future. We're willing to spend more time just traversing back and forth, which is frankly a lot better than we have today. So what we put together here was just some illustration of what we think we're going to go purchase. Most likely a Reed's Ferry or something like that. We try to buy local if we can. But this is sort of the dimensions, some appearance, but allow me some variance depending on pricing, because we're going to still keep sort of a frugal mind to this, but we want it to look nice. And then the color, actually what we thought was, even though it's sort of further out, let's just match colors. Let's continue on the siding and everything else that alumni has today. So there's a slide right below this one, I think. I'm not sure who's driving. There it is. In that blue area where we marked up the circle, that's where we're requesting it to go. Again, sort of out of the way, but easy enough for coaches to grab stuff and move to multiple fields. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but that's in a nutshell. It's a financially better move for everybody. We don't want to keep spending $12,000 a year, where we can put that back into lacrosse sticks and nets and all those other type of things. We'll keep it tucked out of the way, but just make it so that we can get sort of equidistant between those fields. So that's a high level. I know I went quick, top of the waves, but let me just pause there and see if there's any questions so far I can answer.
Great. Any board members with questions for JR? Brad?
Yeah, thanks for that, JR. I just noticed that container there relatively recently. So you're right. I've been driving by it for years and never knew it was there. I guess my question is what's the issue before the school committee? Is it do we need to give you permission to build something on school property?
You do.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's what I figured. So then my question is in part, is mainly I'm going to direct my question to Steve, is then what, I mean, this seems like it'd be a useful thing for the community to have. It doesn't seem like it'd be burdensome for the town at all, or the school committee at all, unless there's a liability issue that I'm not understanding.
No, there's really no liability, and we've allowed other organizations to place similar storage sheds on school property.
Then I'll say I support this.
Thanks, Brad.
Is this going to a vote, or are we just voicing our opinions?
It needs to be a vote.
Yeah. So I'll give you any board member who wants to chime in, feel free right now, and then I'll take a motion on it after everyone's said.
To me, this seems like a no-brainer. I don't see any downside, and I think it would be great for the kids. I know our lacrosse program across all ages is growing. I think that's a great thing to offer more options for the kids, and I think they should have the equipment as close as possible to where they're playing. So I think it's a no-brainer.
JR, I'll just add, I think you've obviously done a terrific job over the 50 years you've been coaching and running the league here. The program's a wild success. So hats off to you. My one question is, two questions. Is the existing container still there? And if who's going to be responsible for making that disappear?
It is, and I'm not sure who could ever move that. I think we should paint it inside it and insulate it or something, because, frankly, levity aside, Justin, it's actually a great thing to own. Someone has to ask Matt Pinard where this thing came from. Okay. But I really have to tell you, it's been excellent, except for the mildew that gets inside of these, unfortunately, living in New England. Right. So right now we are putting the lacrosse nets in it. So I'm covering the high school nets, and I'm covering our own nets in there. So, it's certainly not burdensome. But right now you can't put anything that needs to stay very dry in that facility. So you guys probably need to have a look at that at some point. To me, it's not in the way. It does serve a purpose. It certainly doesn't hurt by any stretch in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, oh, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. My understanding was Lacrosse was still using it for the nets, as JR said. JR, one suggestion though, and we can talk offline on this. You can put vents on those units, so it would help with the airflow on it. So we can talk offline about that if you want.
No, I appreciate it. Anything we can do, because honestly, we're storing the high school nets there too. The youth nets are pretty expensive. High school's at a very another level. Okay, so, and I know Mike likes us to put them there, and we have no issue with that whatsoever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Steve,
So let's you and I
definitely
talk
take that
offline, and we'll try to improve the ventilation in that thing somehow.
That'd be great.
Yep.
So as long as you've got a use for that container, that's fine. I just didn't want, structures to start piling up on school property and it to eventually look unsightly. And then my other thought is just on the location. So if you lost the battle to the mice in the container, how are you not going to lose the battle to the mice in the shed? Because you're going to run into the same problem. Is the location really?
I can't beat a mouse in New England, Justin. It's just something I can't beat. But it's the ventilation more than anything else. When any rodent gets into a moist area, dark area, they get secluded. We know how that works. They're going to stay there a lot longer. We'll mothball it just like baseball and everybody else does on normal sheds. So
okay,
I
just didn't know if we need to find a paved spot for you.
We take it in a second.
So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with that. Again, from a selfish perspective, I would love it behind the field near the baseball shed or something else. As I think about this though, and the need, it's not one of those critical needs we're on the field every minute of the day, right? So it's just far enough out of the way that I think we can make that work. Hey, one other point to note, by the way, this is not going on some slab or permanent foundation. In the event we need to forklift this thing, it will be ready to go. We're just going to put it on blocks. That's how they'll set it up because of the size. If we were going to go too big, that would require a permanent foundation. We won't do that.
Okay. Full support. Thanks.
Thank you.
Emily, did you have a question or a comment?
No, I was just wondering with that, when everyone was asking about where it came from, was that the same container that was on the old jet field?
I don't think so, Timlin. I could look. This is a mystery.
Right, it's been there for a long time. It's like a gray container, and it was on the old outfield of Jet Field.
Was it? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, like left.
Timlin, I believe that's true, but I wouldn't swear on it, but I believe.
Right. Okay. Because like you said, it's been there for years.
Right, and I believe Matt Pennard, back when he was a resource officer, had contacted. I believe it came from Triumph Modular at one point in time. I believe that was the origin of that trailer. So, well, that's
okay. Yeah, I think they used to keep softball stuff in it.
Correct.
Hey guys, just because it's a shameless plug, but I think it's important actually for the town. You got to remember, Littleton Youth Lacrosse only started a dozen years ago, right? It started actually from a bunch of kids that were older than me, but we all played in Concord, and some of the guys brought it to this town. And the amount of kids that are playing in this club level today, and going on to play D1, D2, and D3 is on an exponential rise. We saw that in the 2020 graduate school class, even 2019 to looks at. No, excuse me, it was 2020. Since then, this is a compounding benefit for the town. It's one of the fastest growing sports in America. I know that has nothing to do with a shed, but just because Jen brought this up, I think it's really important. Like, it's on the rise, and we're on the map. It's pretty cool. So thank you for all the support. I just want to say thanks. Quick shameless plug for the committee. And Timlin, I still can't believe you left the board. So just saying that right up front for everybody, okay?
I'm sorry. I wouldn't have. I'll go back.
Okay.
Steve, I have one question for you. If we're going to add more structures in that back area, I mean, from the diagram, it looks, pretty unkept to say the least. Is there any merit in considering putting some gravel down and leveling it out so that, that would certainly help with appearance and also help with pests as well.
We could explore that option and talk to DPW and see if they can't put some gravel down or something. DPW does maintain that area. It is kind of it is out of the way. It's not really noticeable. Unless you're looking at it, it is behind and you saw on the location on the map, it's behind that pump station that's behind the middle school. So it's kind of tucked out of the way. But we can certainly talk to DPW about some kind of a gravel bed to go on there. But they do install the sheds. They do put those on blocks just so they can get it level and get some air circulation underneath it to help with the ventilation underneath those sheds. And I'm not sure what the gravel would do to that, but we can certainly talk to both the shed people and DPW.
Well, it would prevent weeds from growing as long as it was kept up and just much easier to maintain. I do have a question about the metal container too. I mean, I think we probably need to, whoever's responsibility it is, this is typical within school districts and school grounds, but we need to ascertain whether or not this thing is savable or not. And I think that would be the first step, and then work with whoever we need to make sure that it is salvageable. I mean, I'd hate to think of how much it would cost to haul that thing out of there, but if need be, I mean, we want, if we're going to have structures on school property, we want to make sure that they serve a purpose and that they're usable. And I'd hate to just kind of ignore it and throw some things in there and not deal with it. Again, I think we need to make sure that every building we have on school property is something that has a use.
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly call, again, we can call Triumph Modular and have them send out somebody to give us an assessment on that trailer. And just to note, the Lacrosse storage unit that's currently there is back to back with another storage unit that the school owns that we keep alumni field supplies in. There's extra EDE, PDM infill in there. There's extra carpeting in there from the alumni field project. So there's two trailers back to back. Those are 20-foot trailers that are back to back. So we can certainly talk to Triumph about making sure those stay in condition. And, you know, if we need to paint them or something, if they're paintable, we can certainly do that as well.
Thank you.
And hey, Kelly, I know that was not directed at me, but again, if I wasn't clear, that container today absolutely serves a purpose for things that are made of metal, right? Or aluminum. And that's what those large lacrosse nets are made from. We detach the nets for themselves. We put them in a dryer shed like the one we're proposing. But there's very few places that can take something of that size because they're over 6 feet high. So in case that wasn't clear, we definitely would love to keep it there. But the things that we're trying to preserve would get ruined in there in a dark place. It really needs to vent, if I wasn't clear.
No, it was, thank you for restating that. You know, my concern, or I have a number of concerns. If it's leaking and it's damp and wet, there's going to be mold in there, and that can be a health hazard for whoever's going in there. So we want to make sure that if we're providing structures to use, that they're actually safe to go into. And I don't believe the school committee even realizes this, but we are subject to OSHA regulations, which are pretty stringent, and we need to make sure that any structures we have on our property will meet those standards that have been set. So I'm glad you brought this to our attention. We would have never known unless you did. And you know, my intent is to make it a better place to store things. And what do we need to do that? So.
Yeah, and JR, maybe if I'm wrong, you can say so. I don't believe that the Lacrosse storage unit is currently leaking. If I'm wrong, then let me know. The school department certainly has our fair share of containers for storage around the schools. And we have some of them we've actually had Triumph come out and install a rubber roof on it. So instead of just a metal roof on it, it's got a rubber roof on it, and that helps shed the water a little bit better. So I think there are certainly some things that we can look at and do to make it so it's not so unsightly, and also to extend the longevity of those storage trailers.
Yeah, and Steve, to my knowledge, because I think the question was to me, no, I don't think there's anything leaking in that. That's pretty tight. We just need airflow for equipment. Think of a lacrosse goalie stick. I mean, any type of sports equipment, really, it just can't be locked up in a.
Yeah, the moisture that becomes in it is because of the environment and the temperature differences and the temperature fluctuations, and that's why you get moisture buildup in some of those containers.
So can I ask one more question then? So Kelly, I just want to make sure I understood your concern. Your concern seemed to be with the conditions of the structure that's already there and make sure it's safe for our citizens and our workers who go in and out. But your concern was not, if I understood correctly, it was not with the possibility of adding a new structure. Is that fair?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm actually excited that they're going to have a place to put a new structure. I mean, I feel bad that they had to go elsewhere to store their equipment. I just, I really support that structure being there. I just want to make sure that we can maintain that area so that it looks okay. I mean, last thing we want is 6-foot high weeds back there and on and on. So whatever we can do to minimize the maintenance of that area would be to everybody's advantage.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. So right now the school committee's only voting on the proposed new structure. That is if we have a motion. Timlin?
I'll make a motion that we allow the Littleton Youth Lacrosse to build a new structure in that area that was presented on the map.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Jen?
Jen Gold, yes.
Justin?
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Brad?
Brad Austin, yes.
Timlin?
Timlin Rassius, yes.
And Matt Hunt votes yes as well. Thanks, JR.
And thank you all. I really appreciate it. Steve, I'll circle back with you, and I got a couple of small little questions you can help me with, but thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your help and support on this one.
Thanks.
Thank you, JR.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks,
Good
JR.
All right. Next on our agenda is the school improvement plans for the middle school and Russell Street. So who wants to go first, Jason or Cheryl?
I'll go.
Excellent.
I raised my hand, Jason. No one noticed.
I noticed, Cheryl, you did.
I noticed,
You got it right up there.
Right up, but you can go
Oh,
ahead.
no, please. You follow the rules. I did not.
I just know that I'm going to challenge you in the red carpet thank yous at the end. All right. Andrea, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you. So Andrea Romano, assistant principal at Russell Street, is going to share in our slides as well. Thank you, whoever fixed the date for me. I realized today I still had May on the front page. So Steve, if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So our first slide is having to do with curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And so this year we planned accordingly so we could have common planning time for teachers to be able to coordinate both the hybrid and the remote models of learning at the beginning of the year, and that maintained throughout. Teachers at all of our grade levels created common assessments, which was really great, especially to be coordinated with the remote teachers and classes as well. We had daily synchronous instruction from the very beginning. And I don't know about any of you, but in having those conversations with other educators and family members and friends from different districts, that did not happen everywhere. And so we are very proud of that. And our teachers worked very hard to make that happen from the first day. We had a unified arts curriculum delivery that was a different model this year. Each class had a specific unified art, like music, for example, for one trimester, and they had it 3 times a week, and we rotated by trimester. That model made it really important in case we had to pivot at any time, to make sure that kids were able to get all of their unified arts. So that was a really good model that we used this year. We were able to pilot the Lucy Calkins writing curriculum. In some classrooms, we were also able to pilot the foundation, math curriculum in some classes. We are very fortunate. You heard this when the PTA presentation, that Potato Hill Poetry was able to come virtually for grades 3 and 4 this year. And we really appreciate PTA's support with that. Typically grade 3 does a visit to the Historical Society. They walk down. It's a really lovely walking field trip. And they weren't able to do that this year, but people from the Historical Society came to us under the tent outside in the front just a couple of weeks ago. They gave in-person presentations. They brought artifacts from the Historical Society, and they were able to do one classroom at a time, presentations for grade 3. So that was really wonderful. And grade 4 typically goes to Lowell Mills, and they will be able to have that field trip virtually. It's on June 14th and 16th. So that's coming up in another week or so. Next slide, please. Andrea.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'm going to talk about our accomplishments in the area of professional development. We spent a lot of time working on cultural proficiency, which was based off of our time spent with Dr. Khalees Warna. We continued professional development opportunities with trauma-informed instruction with Dr. Nicole Christian Brathwaite. And we also had a lot of different building-based professional development opportunities where teachers actually offered different sessions that they thought would be supportive of other teachers. Just to highlight a few, we had talk about race and equity, best classroom practices in a remote and hybrid world, digital make and take, and mindfulness and movement through storytelling and games. Additional activities with staff to practice cultural proficiency during our staff meetings were structured and built into that time. And then just to highlight the Lucy Calkins professional development and Foundation's professional development opportunities were held last week for staff.
For community and communication, Andrea and I try really hard to get information out to our families through the weekend update each Friday afternoon. And also we put a lot out on Twitter. We hosted parent forums regarding the learning models in the summer of 2020. This year we had Kindness Week. We gave 173 pounds of food in March to Loaves and Fishes. And our students also created notes that we donated to Council on Aging that they put in with meals that were delivered from the Meals on Wheels program. And we also did kindness activities in all of our classrooms. The Rotary was able to continue their dictionary project this year for grade 3. That happened on February 26th. We were usually people from Rotary and in the community come and talk with the students, and it was difficult to do that this year. So the Rotary presented just a blurb for us to, and we printed it out. Thanks to Dorothy, we printed that out. We included it in each student's dictionary. So our students that received a dictionary at school had that listed in there, and then all of our remote students were able to come and pick up their dictionaries during a pickup time. So that took place for all 3rd grade. On Arbor Day, just a couple weeks ago, Littleton Country Gardeners, Littleton Light and Water, and the Littleton Shade Tree Committee provided a sapling for each one of our 3rd graders. Again, they were able to come to the building and do a virtual presentation and talk and meet with the students in the classrooms and answer questions. And each one of our 3rd graders got an American ash sapling. I was lucky enough to get one too, and mine is doing wonderfully in the backyard, so I'm really happy about that. This year we had 4 student interns in a collaboration with Littleton High School. It was really a wonderful project. Heather Love actually was talking about it in our staff meeting on Wednesday. She had 2 students in her class. And we had 2 other students in different classes in the building. And it was amazing to see the connection that her 3rd graders had with those 2 high school students when they came into the building. I was commenting that one day, the Monday after the prom, the 2 students pulled into the parking lot during lunchtime. And when they were walking towards the grassy area, her 3rd graders started clapping and they were yelling their names and they had all kinds of questions about the prom. So they really made this wonderful connection, reading with kids and doing great work. A student that worked with some of our 5th graders was out playing basketball, and it really was a great collaboration that I hope we can continue and really expand on in future years. CPAC, this year we have some representatives for Russell Street School that were elected, I guess, this spring, Liz Parkinson and Allison McCarthy. That it's really wonderful to have contact people on CPAC for our school. The CPAC representatives met with Andrea and Allie and me a week or so ago and really talked about ways to help the community and to work together. So I'm really excited about the rollout of the new CPAC. Andrea.
So we're going to move into the climate and culture. Over the school year, we were fortunate enough to have Heidi McGregor organize several different activities that lasted several weeks. One of them was Pass the Peppers, as well as Make Every Frog Count. We have 2 6th grade students who organized the Literati Litter campaign that's ongoing right now, which we've really been able to make use of at Russell Street. I also want to highlight the STEM nights for math and literacy that took place during the school year. We really were able to keep connected with our remote families and our students, making use of remote pickup stations that different remote teachers organized throughout the school week for students to either drop off or pick up supplies. It was a really nice opportunity for us to connect with students in a casual way that we might not otherwise see as staff members in the building. One of the things that was really, really important for us that kind of came to a highlight midway through the year was just really making structured activities for staff members to really come together to feel supported and motivated and inspired when we were just really like in the thick of things during the school year. We had different teachers step up and organize a walking club, which took place either inside or outside, depending on the weather. TJ Gansenberg organized a drum circle for us. Kristen Hemis did a clay project. Starla Hazen did a read aloud for staff. And I know that right now we have an ongoing hiking club for staff members to take part in. PTA activities were highlighted earlier this evening by Rebecca, but just to make mention of them, we really, really appreciate all of the support that the PTA really gives to our students and our staff and our families. Once again, they were really forthcoming with supplies for students so that remote students and hybrid learners could really have the materials they needed. White dry erase boards, pencil sharpeners, just those really basic supplies that made day-to-day learning really functional. They funded supplies for teachers, snacks, bingo night. We had a virtual dance party recently. And as Rebecca mentioned, also we had 2 book fairs, one in the fall and one in the spring that was in collaboration with the Silver Unicorn Bookstore in West Acton. We had our Spirit Week, and I took on the role of Panera lunch organizer once a month or so for staff members. So that kept the spirits high and gave us something to look forward to.
There's something is about a Panera lunch that you wake up in the morning and it keeps you going knowing you've got your Panera lunch that day. For technology, we rolled out one-to-one Chromebooks for students. We had pickup days, several pickup days in August. Document cameras we've talked about in other presentations. We had the document cameras for staff, and they had training with them during the days before school started in September, and ongoing support throughout the year. We have new monitors for some of our classrooms, and that's an ongoing project. We're increasing the numbers of monitors throughout the building. Other principals have talked about the apps and tools to assist with remote learning that continues to evolve. We have ongoing tutorials and PD opportunities for teachers, around technology. And I mentioned a couple meetings ago, we had a donation of large flat screen TVs that were donated. We're realizing now that it's a little bit more difficult than we anticipated to manage an 80-inch flat screen TV. So we're still in the process of installing them and attaching one to a rolling cart. So we're hoping that they will be ready to go in the fall. And in our last slide, we really wanted to talk about just our focus on looking ahead. Certainly, as we have been, coming to a close of the year, we know that social emotional needs for students will be a focus of ours going forward. So that will be what we are thinking about throughout the summer and what we plan for going forward in the fall and throughout next year. It'll be important for us to monitor student growth, as we always do, and be able to remediate any skill deficits. And we will work hard on continuing the cultural proficiency that we started with this year. This is something that we really will expect to be implemented in our building at all grade levels. I do want to have a little bit of a shout out to Starla Hazen. She is our librarian this year, and she is really on top of all of this. She has a program at Russell Street called Book a Day, and she has bins for each classroom, and she puts a book for each day of the week in those bins. And so the teacher does a short read aloud of a book each day in our building. And she is on top of all of the new topics. And so as soon as we were talking about cultural proficiency, she had all kinds of bestseller books to be able to put in those bins. So that is how we really started our process at Russell Street. It's also, Brad mentioned it a little bit ago, we are really talking about what is beneficial from our COVID response model and what will still be beneficial in the fall. Really small example, we had 3 separate entrances, one for third, one for fourth, one for fifth, and everyone has said, we need to keep that. It makes the morning really calm. It separates the kids out. They each come in their own entrance. They go right to their classrooms. We weren't doing that before. Everyone was going in the front door. So this is a great thing that we will keep, and that it's just one small example. Did you want to add anything to that, Andrea, before I go on to the...
No.
And here's the red carpet part that I'm teasing Jason about, because everyone has always gone on and on with their thank yous, but this is my last time to do it, so I'm going to. I really want to thank Andrea. We had talked for years about having assistant principals in all the buildings, and it really is. Andrea has just been a wonderful addition. I really love working with Andrea. We're great partners. And work extremely well together. And I appreciate everything, Andrea, that you have done.
Thank you.
And just a big shout out, and I'm kidding, I'll be brief. The cafeteria staff did just an amazing job all year. The custodial staff did an amazing job all year. Our nurse specifically, Nicole Berry, has done a wonderful job. Front office staff. Our front office staff is doing recess duties, lunch duties. They are the 2 people who fill in all the time, and they've done an amazing job. Our resource officer, John Janakis, has been by regularly and helped out regularly. The tech team has been absolutely amazing. We just had MCAS a couple weeks ago, and I was a nervous wreck about that, and said in the staff meeting yesterday, as soon as I knew that Julie and Natalie and Charlie were going to be in the building, it just brings it down a bunch of levels, because you really can't mess it up when they're there. So they've been really supportive for the whole year. Our unified arts teachers and Starla Hazen in the library have been wonderful, very flexible, very accommodating throughout the whole year. We have a great group of TAs in our building who, again, have have had to be very flexible, be able to change at a moment's notice, and they have all been wonderful the whole year. Our teachers obviously have done an amazing job throughout the year. I can't say it enough. They continue to just plug on every single day. They've been absolutely amazing. And I do want to thank to my administrative team colleagues. At any time, I've been able to pick up the phone or text somebody and get help or support with something. So, to have an amazing, an admin team as strong and amazing as ours is just a really wonderful thing. So that's the end of my red carpet. Are there any questions?
I'm going to add a little bit to the red carpet. On behalf of the staff at Russell Street, I just want to say thank you to Cheryl for her amazing leadership throughout the year. As many people know, we've had some bumpy roads prior to her coming on board. And, one of the messages and themes throughout the year I've heard throughout the hallways was we wouldn't have been able to get through it without her leadership. So I just want to take a minute to acknowledge her hard work and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks. It's a regular love fest. Any questions?
Thanks, Cheryl. Board members, any questions? I see Timlin with a raised hand. Timlin, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you. I know that we always, we focus on the kids and everything, but it was nice to hear that you focused on your staff this year. I know it was such a hard year for everyone, and seeing you put together activities to help them come together in ways that they haven't before to support each other. It was really great to hear that. Thank you.
Brad.
Yeah, and I echo that. It was really good to see. And also, it's really nice to see, we see evidence of the administrative team being able to work well together, but it's really nice to hear you express what we're witnessing, that this works. The only way that any of this worked is that people were able to kind of help each other out. And so I'm so glad to hear you say that and express it publicly. I'll just say I'm really glad to see the historical field trips were able to be preserved at some level. That's my own selfish interest. I think the third grade tree thing is one of the best things we do as a district. Kids love that. They like pointing out their trees for years afterwards. And I'm glad to see the kind of CPAC new structure and new leadership is really paying off. That's great to see. I was really glad to see that slide you had about, I forget what you called it, the looking ahead slide, because I think that's going to be really important for us moving forward. And I have a question, it may be too early to be able to answer it, but the kind of looking ahead, you've talked about some kind of structures and some, moving people around stuff, the ability, as Timlin said, to kind of support the staff in really specific ways. I'm wondering about the curriculum side, and are we going to be able to find ways to continue to use all this technology we bought and spent a year training to get up to speed on? I'm thinking specifically about the document cameras. Is that something that you see when we're in, God bless, I hope we're all in person, in the rooms together next year. Do you see those document cameras being a one-year thing or something that we can really utilize moving forward?
We have talked about this as a staff, and just one example, like sometimes teachers do a science experiment together, and I could definitely see, the experiment happening in one classroom and having the kids watching on a Google Meet from another classroom, right? And so those are the kinds of things that were happening, throughout right now. And I can see those things absolutely. The teachers were really ready to put the computers away when all the kids came back, but they're out again already. You know what I mean? There's I see computers open in classrooms all the time. And so, it was fine to take a break from them, but everybody has said they can't imagine not functioning with them the way they had it in the past. There was just too many things that they learned that were, wonderful features that they will continue with going forward.
That's really great to hear. And I'm glad we'll have a structure for talking about these things, because, we focused a lot on the kind of cost to our students this year, and they were real, and they will probably be lasting. But they also developed certain proficiencies and skills and resiliencies that will also, I think, be real and lasting. And if we can, as a district, think about ways to kind of maximize and continue to build on those, I think, and do so kind of thoughtfully and systematically, I think that'll be a real benefit. So thanks for your leadership on this.
Hey, I just want to echo a couple things. as Brad said, in particular, the field trips, the historical field trips, I think those are really critical, especially at the age that these kids are, the 3 to 5, the grades 3 to 5. I think it's important, especially in our neck of the woods, where in New England there's so much history, and to connect these kids in a very real way to the very, very hyper local Littleton history gives them a bigger sense of where we fit into American history. I think that's really cool. I know my daughter, who's finishing 5th grade, still talks about some of the field trips she took in 3rd grade, and the connection to our town, and it gives her a curiosity about other towns and just where we fit in. So I think those are great. Please, obviously continue those, and great job with everything else. Thank you.
Justin?
I'll just pile it on. Great job. Very much appreciate everyone's efforts. And I liked your point about sort of a little bit of reflection on what did we learn this year. Sort of all bets were off in terms of we can do things differently this year, and a little bit of reflection on what maybe worked well. What can we stick with in years to come to get a little bit more efficient in some areas, or just create a better experience for the students and staff. So although this is a year that we kind of want to put behind us, I think there are some takeaways that we can certainly appreciate in years to come. So thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Cheryl, Andrea. I would just echo what my fellow board members said, especially about coming through the adversity of this year. I think that there's a lot that we can take from it. There were a lot of negatives, but there's a lot of positives that we can get from it. So keep up the good work and enjoy your summer as we get closer to it, because you guys definitely deserve it. All right. Jason.
All right. So for the middle school, I took more of a global approach, really about the things that we're doing as a whole school, with the perspective of what did we start this year that we're going to be able to continue into next year. So Steve, if you want to go to the next slide. So one of the things that our teachers did from the beginning was to really calibrate the scope and sequence of what they were asking students to learn. There were a lot of questions going into this year around what did students miss in the previous spring? How were we going to catch students up? What were we going to do to be able to create, a quote unquote normal learning environment for our students? And so teachers spent a lot of time really looking at the scope and sequence and really trying to distill it down to what is it that we can reasonably expect students to learn in a hybrid model, what would be nice for them to learn, and then really sort of working from that target outward. And so they did a great job in terms of being able to quickly get a grasp of just what students were able to accomplish while they were learning at home and a couple of days at school. To do that, one of the things that I asked our staff to do is really focus on project-based learning and the reduction in homework, knowing that students were going to be stressed, knowing that what we didn't know about COVID and about the process, to pull back some of the traditional models of learning and really focus on those things that students would be able to do in school, at home, to demonstrate their learning. Not that homework isn't important, but what we didn't want to do was pile on busy work to kids just to say we were doing work, but rather demonstrations of knowledge, getting kids to show what they know rather than just repeating what they've learned. And our teachers did an amazing job of really taking what they've done for years and moving it into a project-based style. As we moved into the spring, began to look at the content in various subjects for representation and cultural awareness. And we'll talk about that here more in a second. And looked at our schedule and what we could do to maintain a certain amount of momentum in the course of a given week, given the disruptions. With it 2 days in and 3 days away, we went to an 80-minute unified arts block, and I knew the teachers would love it, but I think they were unsure at the beginning, and by the end they were like, can we keep this for next year? They just found that it was so much better for their teaching, because if you had an art class, you had it 2 days a week and then you didn't have it again until the next week. And at 45 minutes, by the time you get the kids in and out, how much teaching and learning are you really talking about in the course of a given week? So moving it to an 80-minute block allowed teachers to get much deeper, richer in their discussions, in their content, for students to create work. And what I hoped would happen did happen, and that they fell in love with that. So in terms of what we're doing as a middle school to really look at this year in what we were able to accomplish, but really focusing on next year. All of these things are things that we intend to keep moving as we move forward, right? To continue looking at our scope and sequence, to continue the project-based learning, continue reductions in homework. I made no, secret about the fact that I'm a big believer in the reduction of homework, and that you can get kids to show what they know in school, and finding ways to make homework meaningful when you do give it. We will continue to examine our content, and we will continue this new schedule to really get the most out of what we've done. All right, next slide, Steve. So in terms of professional development, we really broke it down into what is it that the teachers need. And so to start the year, the thing that we kept hearing was they needed time to learn the technology, time to learn the routine. And so we definitely provided that time for them. And I think it really did pay off. The learning curve of how to teach remotely and while you're in the building, or how to teach remotely on Wednesdays, those things are an art form. And what could have taken months, our teachers were able to do in days or weeks. As we got into the spring, we dedicated staff meetings to cultural proficiency. And I'll be honest, we're just dipping our toes in the water this spring, but it's definitely something that we are going to continue next year. We had an opportunity to look at current lessons and ways that we can find increased representation, whether that's the books that we have for students in the classroom, whether it's the representations that we use in word problems in math or in science, all the way across the board, not just limiting it to social studies and the humanities, but really to look at across all the curricula, how can we increase that representation? And so these are things that you don't do in a single staff meeting or in a single month. This is going to be a years-long process. And so we've begun that process. And I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what we're doing. And we even extended it to, what happens if you have a required test or a required text or required materials that you have to do? Can those still be, if they are not representative enough, are there ways that you can use them as a springboard for those discussions? And so we don't want to be limited by the curriculum that we have and saying, well, this doesn't fit into this topic. We're going to find ways to fit it in. We're going to find ways to use our curricula to allow us to have these discussions on race, equity, diversity, and cultural awareness. And obviously the PD-led sessions just facilitated a lot of what they had been doing in the fall and in the winter. So in terms of professional development, we really wanted to make this about what did teachers need to be able to do the work that we wanted them to do. So with really beginning to start to look at our curricula, to look at how we use our time and what we're asking teachers to do, and then letting them lead each other through those PD sessions was really valuable. Next slide, Steve. So in terms of community and communication, obviously the weekend update we continue to do. I started last year. I put together a website that made it a lot easier, I think, for families to be able to find what they're looking for rather than scrolling through pages and pages of email. A Google site where they could just simply click where they wanted to go and get right to the information that they were looking for. So obviously we'll continue to do that. One of the things that we really had to hone in on was communicating about school events, because we didn't have the traditional year that we normally would. So it became imperative for us to really be communicating with home around some of the things that we have going on. So some of those events, things like town hall meetings that we did virtually, were really successful. And I'll be honest, I wasn't really sure going into those in August and September how that would go. You don't know what you're going to walk into. The families were great, and the meetings went well. Dorothy moderated them. It was wonderful. We did our conferences virtually. We did our IEP and service delivery meetings virtually. And I think it really, one of the things that we're going to continue to do as we move forward, because it makes it so much more convenient for families, so they don't have to take time off of work to come into the building. We can schedule these meetings in a much more convenient way. And so some of the virtual stuff that we weren't looking forward to in the fall has become a staple of what we're doing, and I know that we'll continue to do it. Our outreach to our community really begins and ends with the teachers and staff communicating with families around student health and happiness, what's going on, more than just the academics, really paying attention to how are students feeling, what's their body language like, what kinds of things are going on, so that we can try and hone in on some of those topics more than just the academics of it. And also with the technology support, we had a lot of families who were struggling in the beginning, how to use Google Meet, how to access Aspen, how to do all of these things. And so our teachers became de facto tech support people as well, trying to coach people through all of that. So we really ramped up the amount of community outreach and communication that we use at the middle school, because we've established this partnership, but we really want to deepen it. We really want to make it a richer partnership, two-way communication. So much of what schools do is one way, coming from the school out to families. We wanted this to be two-way, a back and forth. And so that's really what we are working towards, and will continue to work towards as we move forward into next year. Next slide, Steve. In terms of our climate and culture, I'm going to echo what so many people have said about our PTA. I don't know what I would have done without our PTA this year. We are very spoiled at the middle school. We have such a great group, and I'm going to be so sad next year because so many of them are moving on. They really stepped up this year. It started off, they arranged and paid for the rolling pizza kitchen to show up at our school and cook pizzas for the staff, and we sat outside and ate pizza. It was great. They arranged for the Cookie Monster truck to show up with cookies and hot chocolate during the middle of the year. They did put together a wonderful staff appreciation Cinco de Mayo lunch, and that's in addition to all of the curriculum materials they bought, the things that they did to support what's going on in the classroom. It's such a wonderful group, and I will say, I know I've told them this, but I will say it to all of you. Having many teacher friends in other districts, we have it really good here with our PTA. There are a lot of schools that can't say what we can say here in Littleton about that group, so I can't thank them enough. One of the initiatives that we started, and it's still a work in progress, is a well-being committee, because as much as we want to focus on student health and happiness, we really wanted to focus on the health and happiness of our educators. And so beginning that process of how do we start to do more staff events? How do we get in touch with what's going on? So there's simple things that we've started, some of them more consistent than others, but it's really given us an opportunity to really look at, you know what, these are important check-ins for all of us to be able to see how you're doing. You may be in a classroom next to somebody, but never really get a chance to talk with them on a personal level that isn't about a student or about a lesson. We wanted to break down those barriers and help teachers get to know each other again, and to break down some of those walls between classrooms, not literally but figuratively, so that we can all be in touch with how we're all doing. One of the things we also did was continue that with our students. Me and myself and Sarah Dorfman, our school adjustment counselor, led a series of student focus groups. We did one on mental health and happiness with students. We had a 6th grade, a 7th grade, and an 8th grade group. And we just took an hour and met with the kids and just asked them questions about how they were doing. And it's so interesting, their responses. 8th graders felt very downtrodden. On a scale of 1 to 10, they felt around a 5, 6, 7 in terms of where they were. The 6th graders were like, yeah, this is great. It was so interesting, the arc of where the kids were in their mental health. And we were able to glean a lot of information around where are our students in terms of their comfort and their willingness and ability to return back to a traditional school model. We also did the same with students on the issues of race and equity, a 6th grade, a 7th grade, and an 8th grade focus group. And really because we wanted to hear what the student experience is at Littleton Middle School. I think that was the most important part to us. We talk a lot as adults and educators about what we see and what we're doing and changing and teaching, but we never often ask, what is it that the students are getting from that? And so we really wanted to take a student-centered approach to these two topics to really sort of get from them what stuck, what didn't stick, where can we improve, what can we do better, and we were able to get a lot of information from there, which is really going to become the foundation for the work that we're going to be doing in the fall. In addition to our weekly grade level team meetings, which become so important, because a monthly staff meeting is great, but a lot can happen between meetings. And so our weekly staff meetings, our weekly team meetings really help us talk about students, talk about the issues that are going on, to begin to game plan solutions to some of these things so we can deal with things in real time, not just waiting for them to happen. So all of this helps build our climate and culture to create an environment of caring and trust and reliability on each other and accountability from admin to teacher and teacher to admin and across the board. All right, next slide, Steve. So technology, teaching in the hybrid classroom was a monumental task. Our teachers were able to build proficiency with Google Meet and Google Classroom really very quickly. Some of our teachers were already proficient with these technologies. Some hadn't really used them much. And so the learning curve had to happen very quickly. And they rose to that challenge, in addition to tons of other programs, which we've talked quite a bit about in our school committee meetings, that individual teachers use to facilitate learning and to foster student support in that. One of the things that we really are looking forward to, in terms of the use of technology, we do MAP tests 3 times a year. And in previous years, these tests we would have the 6th grade and the 7th grade and the 8th grade tests, and required special schedules and time out of learning. And then it was makeups and trying to get kids to find kids and get them to do all this. What we decided to do this year was hold them all on the same day at the same time. So each one happened in a single day, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade all taking it at the same time, because for the first time, we had the technology to be able to do that. And it worked, and it worked really, really well. And what it's really done is it's added time in learning back to our schedule. Instead of losing 6 or 8 days a year to MAP testing, we're losing 3 or 4. And so those extra days get put back into the calendar. And so we will continue to do that again next year. And we're actually going to look at being able to see if we can do the same thing with MCAS. Do we have the staff, the space, and the technology to be able to do MCAS across the board on the same day, so that we're not losing 2 months of instruction because MCAS has to be spread out over that time? So that's another one of the silver linings to all of this, is that it may have put us in a position to be more efficient, more streamlined with some of our testing, so that time in learning can go back into the regular calendar and help with student support even more. And so also just having the ability to increase our virtual meetings to allow for that more frequent communication, representation from different stakeholders, that opportunity is something that we will continue to use as well, because it just allows so many more people to have a voice, to get the information in real time, to be able to ask questions and get the information they need. I think that's the last slide. I will save my long list of thank yous. I'll do it privately. I'll go around, but as we do that, I'm so grateful to the people that we work with, but I'm gonna thank them all individually. I may have to back the truck up with bottles of vino for everybody just to say thank you for all the hard work that you've done. But it really has been an incredible thing to watch this year, people pulling together and doing some of the hardest work that I've ever seen. And here we are 2 weeks out, and I didn't think we would get to this point, and we have, and words can't express my gratitude to everyone involved in this process. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. At this point, I'll open it up to any school committee members. Have any questions or comments? And I see Timlin with her hand raised. Go ahead, Timlin.
I'm trying to beat Brad tonight.
That's a tall order. Let's see.
It is. I'll never get there. No, being a middle school parent, Jason, I just want to say thank you for all the hard work you did. You really made, which is a tough age of group of kids to get through to in a normal school year.
Mm-hmm.
You and your staff made this year something that you should be very proud of, especially the communication, the town halls, the emails. I know that parents I've been in the school system a long time. Second one is graduating now Saturday, but the communication that has come out of the school has been incredible, and it's been nice to be in front of instead of chasing up,
right,
trying to find out the information. So thank you. I appreciate all that you did this year.
No, you're very welcome, and thank you for the kind words. I do appreciate that. I am very proud of the work that we were able to do. The communication piece is so important, because people want information so quickly, and things happen and they change in real time. A decision that's made at noon on a Thursday can be completely something different by 3 o'clock. And so there is a balancing act. Over communication can be a problem, because then you're constantly changing expectations. So trying to find that, I think we did a really good job given where we're at. So thank you for noticing. I appreciate it.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Brad.
Jason, I really appreciate that report. I like the holistic approach. And what I especially appreciated is your kind of conscious effort to say, and this is what we'll take from this moving forward. I would just say, I really look forward to seeing whether it's in the fall, over the summer, or next year, what all these different teams come up with is these are the best practices. This is what we adapted. This is what we changed. I've always enjoyed middle schools and a team approach, and I'm glad you're able to find ways to make that work. I will say, just thinking back to kind of John's presentation for earlier and your presentation here, I think 3-4 years from now, we may look back and say schedule changes and the real shift to project-based learning were a net major positive for our schools. I think that the longer blocks at the middle school and high schools are, I'm glad your staff is liking it. I know from the student perspective, they get more chance to kind of dig in and do some real thinking and be a little less overwhelmed. So I think if, I'm sorry it took this to be the catalyst for those changes, but I'm glad we as a district have made some of those changes. And I'm also glad to hear you say, and I think I heard John saying, and Keith Camo saying, that we'll keep a lot of these moving forward. So I think I really support them. Thank you.
A lot of the decisions that we made, Brad, weren't just done in a vacuum or just to solve the problem in front of us. We tried to be very careful about the changes that we made, because change is difficult, and it was thrust upon us. So we wanted to make it something positive, something that would come from it. And so when we looked at making a change, it was always done with the eye of, let's not just do this for today. If we're gonna change something, let's change it to something that we can continue to use, so that people feel like it was worth it. Because what we didn't want to do is change everything and then go back to the old way come this September, because in and of itself, that's too much of a change. And so now that new routines have formed, that old idea, it takes 3 weeks to build a habit, like we're in that now. And so I'm looking forward to where we go from here, just based on that, and getting people to change things would have been more difficult without this. So while I won't say it was a good thing that we went through, I will say there was a positive that comes from it. And sometimes change being forced upon us results in some really great things. And so that's what we're going to continue to work on.
Well, I appreciate that, Jason. I also appreciated your kind of statement earlier that, this is something I believe in as an educator, that we should be doing this type of work, and they can prove their understanding in these ways. I think Camo and Harrington were saying the same sort of things. We've wanted to have to experiment with block scheduling. We think it's right as educators. I think that we'll look back and say that was a real positive came from this. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Hey, Jason, thank you so much for that great presentation. One thing that I noticed, and I don't want to get into this discussion because it could go on forever, but just something I observed and heard you say was about homework. And I'm old school, right? I remember being a kid and being in middle school, grade school, coming home and having 2 hours of homework and buckling down, and my parents teaching me in a way discipline, around focusing, and after you do your homework, then dinner or play or whatever. But I hear you saying, less focus on homework. And I've noticed with my kids, especially during this past year, pretty much no homework. Even before that, less focus on homework. These are new concepts to me. I can't believe it. I'm old school, right? So I'm interested to learn more about that as we go forward. It certainly doesn't, we certainly don't need to continue that potentially terrible practice of having a couple hours of homework every night. But I wonder, what happens if the pendulum swings too far in the other direction. So just something I'd love to sort of keep an eye and an ear on as we move forward into the next school year about homework and how good or bad impacts and how it does or doesn't build good habits for these kids going forward.
Absolutely. And obviously that you're right, Jen, that could turn into a 2-hour conversation on its own. So, but I'll give you the short answer. I remember when I was teaching, when I taught in Cambridge one year, I decided, you know what? I'm not giving homework anymore. The kids are too stressed. It's creating too many problems. And I remember sitting in, the back to school night, and I said to the group of families in front of me, I'm not doing homework. And I just waited because I thought I was just going to get crushed. And the only thing I heard was one parent whisper, "Thank you." And what I have developed over the course of my career, Jen, is a belief that homework should still be there. We're not talking about the elimination of it out of practice, but really about making it meaningful. In other words, sending kids home with 2 hours of homework and equating length of time doing work and rigor aren't necessarily the same thing. But if what you send home is meaningful, it's powerful, and it's important, then it's worth doing. But if it's just to say, I work my kids really, really hard, then we have to ask ourselves, are you really getting the most from your students? And so it is an examination, and it is a process that we will go through. Not everybody's there. It's a personal belief that I have as an educator. but we will continue to have those discussions, I'm sure, as we move forward. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Russell?
Yeah, sure. I'll just add that sort of my major takeaway from your presentation was just a commitment to active listening, and just I appreciate that, with the check-ins with the students and the staff. Others alluded to the fact that you've got a tough age group there, so you're doing great things, and I'm sure it's happening at all of the schools. But I just heard you reference over and over again sort of collaboration within what's coming out of the student groups and then the staff as well. So just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, and thank you. I spent 17 years in the classroom, but I never taught in a pandemic. So for the first time in my career, I didn't have the ability to say, oh yeah, I know what you're going through. So we had to listen, right? We had to hear about the experiences in order to be able to do our jobs effectively. So it really became the number one priority in what we do. How could we move the building forward if we weren't literally listening to the experiences of both student and staff? So it was really important to us, and it will continue to be.
Thanks. Jason, definitely Jen brought up a good point about the homework. I look forward myself to having some conversations on that in the future. And I'm kind of the mindset you are, as long as it's meaningful, not just for the sake of having homework. That's, I've been an educator now for going on 20 years, and that I've kind of come to the same conclusion. But I think it's worth having a discussion
Absolutely
about in the future. But I just wanted to say, as the parent of 2 middle schoolers, to thank you to you and your entire staff, because the communication this year was phenomenal, and teachers just reaching out to parents and letting them know if they noticed anything in school, if they thought there was something that could be done to help them out, and then just the flexibility. A lot of kids struggling. I know I've heard from parents that allowing kids extra time to get something in, or being flexible on due dates with this really strange situation we found ourselves in. And, I really appreciate it. I can't say enough good things about my experience as a parent of middle schoolers. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I want to just add on to that real quickly, that because one of the groups that I won't be able to thank individually are our families. I remember back in the fall when we lost 2 science teachers. We had a math teacher who was on maternity leave, an ELA teacher on maternity leave. We lost TAs, and we literally would email families to say, okay, we don't have a math teacher today. And I just, again, was just waiting for the onslaught of emails. And all I got were positive. You got this. Don't worry about it. We're good. I am astounded at how flexible and understanding our families were during this time. We wouldn't have been able to do it as a staff without that. And so thank you to the families of Littleton for really understanding with the hardship that we were going through. And if you didn't understand it, at least rolling with it till we were able to make everything work the way that we wanted to. So thank you to all of you as well.
Great. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate the updates on the school year. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Clenchey, and he's going to give us a rundown of the schools that our 2021 high school graduates are going to be attending in the fall.
Thanks, Matt. Just before we go into the next item, just wanted to thank our principals and assistant principals and our staffs for everything they've done this year. Very evident every year we do the state of the curriculum address, more or less, with a link to our strategic plan. And we're on target, and we're committed to continual improvement. And it's very evident tonight that even during a trying year, we still ensure that we take the time to make sure that when we implement different practices, that they are going to make a difference. I'm very proud of our administration and staff. Every year we present a list of colleges and universities that our seniors, soon to be graduates, are accepted at. This is a very special, high-performing senior class. And it's always interesting when I look at the places that they're going. We have some of our students that stay closer to home, others venture out. This year we have one that is going to University of Oxford in the UK. And it's kind of interesting just to see the patterns that emerge from year to year. When university starts in the fall, all of our students in our graduating class will be attending college and universities. No gap years, which, you know, in the past four years, we've usually had a couple of students, a few students take a gap year. And, you know, that's also productive as well. But this year, you know, we have a class that's raring to start their post-secondary careers. And it's just really interesting to see the colleges of choice for our students this year. Does anybody have any questions about the list that we presented to you tonight?
Could we get a copy of it? This is really interesting. I'd love to dig in a little deeper.
Sure, it's in your package.
Oh, sorry. Perfect. Thanks.
But sure, yeah, it's
No, it's done.
perfect.
Great.
Kelly, I'd just like to say I'm really impressed by this list and by the, you know, our students' ambition and like they're, you know, to go to find a school that's right for them. I like, frankly, as an educator, I like the fact that a lot of them are the only student from Littleton going to these places. That shows kind of the confidence. They don't have to go with their group. I also imagine it'll be really fun to see friends, you know, on different campuses. I hope that that we as a district can continue to celebrate and support kids who are not going directly to college or choosing not to go to college at all, whether it's military service or just getting a job and working in the field. I mean, I hope that, and I'm not suggesting we're not, I just hope that we as a school committee and we as a district can recognize the validity of those choices as well and celebrate those students' accomplishments too.
Well, and thank you for saying that, Brad. I mean, we've always supported multiple pathways, and you know, this year seems to be an exception to what we've seen in previous years. And there are so many ways to attain your lifelong goals and dreams, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you go from graduating high school right into another college or into a college or university. I mean, multiple pathways is key, and as we all know, I think most of us, when we first went to university or college, very few of us really knew exactly what we wanted to do, and it was an opportunity to explore and take risks, and you know, continue to unwrap the gifts that we all have. So it's a learning experience that continues, and I guess my advice to all of our seniors and students is, there's no hurry in getting there. You just have to decide what you want, and that happens, you know, faster with some students than others, and it's all part of growing and learning.
Brad, I appreciate that as well. That was going to be one of my same questions. but then Kelly, did I hear you say that we don't have, so do we have 108 graduating seniors and then 108 students on that list?
Yes. All of our seniors in the fall will be going to
Wow,
college.
that's surprising. That's terrific. Wow.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks for clarifying that.
All right. Next item on the agenda is discussion on school start times. I know since I came on the school committee 5 years ago, this is something that has been on a lot of people's minds as far as is a 7:20, 7:25 start time too early for teenagers? There's a lot of data out there that would suggest that students aren't exactly performing their best at that time. I know that we had a couple board members look into this a few years back. And if I remember correctly, one of the biggest issues was the busing. But I did want to just open it up to board members, get some of their thoughts on whether this is something we'd like to pursue. Obviously not for next year at this point, but if we're going to be looking for the 2022-2023 school year, the time to start would be now. So any comments or thoughts from our board members?
Timlin, you want to go first? Okay.
You can go.
I mean, I'm obviously brand new. This is something that is very interesting to me to explore. I would love, we can't just talk about this now. I mean, it's a huge topic and it needs a lot of thought and preparation. I wonder if so I'm very interested personally as one of the 5 on the school committee. I wonder if we could put together some baseline packet of information that we could all review, pulling from the research that's already been done here in Littleton. I know, as you said, Matt, that some school committee members have been tasked in the past with starting to look into this. I would imagine that some baseline set of research has been pulled together. Maybe not, but if so, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. At least if something could be pulled together that we could all look at in the next couple of weeks before meeting again, that we could then come to the table and have more of a formalized agenda around the discussion, that would be really helpful. If there isn't that kind of baseline research, maybe we can commit to starting to work on that, going forward in the next couple of weeks. I don't know, just a thought.
Thanks. Kelly might be able to, Dr. Clinch might be able to answer better than I on that.
Sure.
That was the year before I came on the board. I'm not sure if anything is preserved from that time or if anyone has that. One thing that we can do is there are districts within the state who have made the change.
Yeah.
Reaching out to them, getting to see how they do it, how they make it work. I don't know if it's something that we can have for the 17th, our next and last meeting of the school year, or something that we can look to put together a package over the summer, maybe look at it at our retreat in August.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll let Dr. Clenchy pipe in on that if he has any.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and it's something that keeps coming to the table throughout a number of years, and there are many different components of school start times, and it's certainly multi-layered. We have had subcommittees in the past, and they've done good work, and a lot of districts that I've been following that have jumped into this have certainly made some progress, have faced significant roadblocks along the way, and really what I would like to see is, and it's probably too premature at this point in time, you really need to probably give this some more thought, but some direction from the community or from the school committee as a whole would be helpful. My recommendation is that if this is a priority of yours as a school committee, that we think strategically about how we want to go about this, and my recommendation would be to bring in a consultant to work with a subcommittee and explore various options, and we could help mold, the areas of exploration that we would like to look at. I mean, there are some preliminary things we can do. I mean, none are going to be totally well received by our public. I've been doing this for a number of years. I was one of the many superintendents during the recessions that had to implement staggered bus times to save money so that we could spend our money on teachers and classroom materials. So things were tight, and we saved hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that. In fact, I actually ended up selling a district's bus fleet so that we could make ends meet and contracted out services. So I've been around this block a number of times. If you want to change structures in terms of compressing the start times within the district, it will cost a few $100,000 up to $300,000. If you want to work within the structure that we have by increasing start times by 20 minutes or so, it could be done with very little cost, but somewhere along the line you have to decide who's going to start first and who's going to start last. And that's an interesting discussion. I've actually watched a school district take that approach, and my understanding is by the time they were done, they backed off and decided to lay it to rest for a while. So it's an admirable task. I think there's a lot of merit in doing this if as a school committee you feel that this is a goal that you would like to pursue. But I really feel bringing a consultant in and having them focus on this is in its entirety with school committee input, administrative input, public input, student input. I'm going to emphasize student input we've already done that, and it's interesting when you look at the percentages that prefer a change and do not. It's not unanimous. It's almost a 50-50 split. So there's so much to consider, and I've read the research many times. Like any research, block of research, there's certainly dichotomous findings, which is natural. And we are all individuals, and things that perhaps work for some don't work for others. And so I just want you as a school committee, and I'm sure you realize this isn't a fix-all for every child. It won't be. It will be advantageous to some and disadvantage to others. So really, it's what you would like to do. There's a lot of work and a lot of strategy that's involved, and I think that's my major premise for suggesting that we take a look at a consultant to help us through this process, if the school committee wants to go in that direction.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I would concur on a lot of the points you make. It's not fix all for everyone. You know, with each solution that you put forth, you end up with other problems, and it's a question of give and take. What are you willing to give up in order to get? You know, I've been on these committees in my district before and trying to figure it out, and you know, just some of the things besides the buses. You know, if we have later start times with the high schools, then you also have school sports possibly starting later. There's, you know, kids getting home later. If you switch up the school start time so that the Shaker Lane is now going to school first, then you may have kids getting on the buses in the dark in the wintertime, which isn't ideal either. So there's just so many variables that I think it would be in our interest to team up with maybe some professionals, but I would also like, you know, a subcommittee from the school committee working with that group, if that's the choice we choose to go in, because I know this is something that is on the minds of some of the members of the community and some of the members of the board. So at this point, does anybody else want to chime in on, get their thoughts on it? Or yes, Timolyn.
Why do you sound like that, Matt? No, I just was going to say that I think we've had so much public input from the parents and the community that I think we owe it to them to look into it, whether or not we end up going with start times. Because like you said, there's so many moving parts. There's so many different pieces to this puzzle to fit together. And I know that a lot of people go, well, they're worried about the sports. And it's not just that's one piece of it. Like you just mentioned Shaker Lane. If Shaker Lane goes to school earlier, then who is watching them at 1:45 when they get out of school? If they're going to school at that 7:25 hour, that's something that parents also have to think about too. But I do think that we should look into it, and the consultant, I think, is a great idea, a professional who has done this for other districts, and working with us and getting parent input and administrators and teachers. And I'm all for it if we can at least have something on the table to show to people what we have. And if we go for it and we do it, that'd be great. But if we can't because of all the moving parts, at least we have done our research and we've done our due diligence on it.
Yeah, and I would agree with Timolyn and also Matt. I think I like the idea of bringing in a consultant. I don't know things like the cost or other implications, but listen, yes, there are a ton of moving parts, and I don't mean to minimize that, but we're not wading into this totally uncharted territory. Like we are in a state where there are many towns that have later start times for older kids. And it's a trade-off. There's going to be a trade-off or a few trade-offs in terms of budget for buses or, you know, sports or whatever. Like there are a lot of knowns. It's not a whole bunch of unknowns. It's a lot of knowns and trade-offs. And I don't know. It's not going to be simple, but I think that we can learn from the experiences of other towns in our general area and make some decisions that we feel are best for our town. So I do think using a consultant who's done this before and has seen the moving parts and the trade-offs, I think would be really beneficial.
Right. Thanks, Jen. I think it's a worthwhile exercise, at least to see where we're at. Brad, Justin, did you have it? Brad?
Yeah, I think we can try to, as a school committee, apply some of the same lessons we've been watching our administrators describe over the last couple of meetings, and we can learn from what we did this year. This year, we discovered that it's possible for us to tackle complicated topics in which, as Kelly pointed out, there's not going to be a clear consensus on one side or the other. We can listen to experts, we can gather data, and we can maybe take tough votes. We can do these things. It's what we ran to do. I think I have no idea where I'll land, but I certainly think we need to establish a process so that we can hear from the community, consult the relevant experts and the research, and then take an informed vote, work with our partners in the LEA and the leadership at the schools, and then take a vote, early next year, whether it's October-ish or so that for the next school year, whatever we decide, we have time to implement it. I think we have time to do this right. Whether that involves a consultant or not, frankly, I'm agnostic about that. If we can find someone who does this and does this well and can help us get up to speed on a lot of issues really quickly, then that's probably worth the money. But I do think it's something that this committee seems to have an appetite for, and I know our community does. So I think we should create a process to do that. And maybe what we do is we think more about it, and we try to devise the process, and we think more about consultants, and we ask Kelly to tell us kind of like who's out there. I don't know who are other school start times consultants, how do you find them? So, to Jen's point, we've got a meeting in a couple of weeks. Maybe that's when we really kind of nail this down and say, are we going to have a subcommittee? Are we going to have a consultant? But I think it's really important for us to have I'm a process guy, that we have a process so that we can hear from everybody and make an informed decision.
Thanks, Brad. Justin?
I'll just say that there appears to be some consensus among the school committee that we should investigate this further. I think it's been, it was before your time, Matt. I mean, you're the senior member here. So it's been a while since we've looked at this. When we talk about it, everyone, has got a solution, which is followed by two more problems. So I think we at least sort of owe it to the community to put pen to paper and kind of list out the pros and cons, maybe a couple different strategies, what it would cost the community. And then to Brad's point, ultimately we can make a decision. Might not be an easy one, and we might end up right where we are. But what we don't want to do is lose any momentum on the topic, because, where we are with the calendar, we're going to have to sort of carry some momentum over the summertime so that we're ready to fully vet this in the fall. And if we're going to be able to put this in place in the following year, if there are any changes. So I don't know if you want to create a quick little subcommittee that can try to get some work done over the summertime, and then in early fall, we can have a sort of a summary presentation, or that might be when we bring the consultant in once we've identified what our goals are or what our, unique objectives to our town and our budget might be. I don't know, but I'm all in favor of taking a good hard look at it. And ultimately, if we make a change, we know we're gonna upset some people. And if we stay right where we are, we know we're gonna upset some people. So we might as well look at it.
Justin, we haven't done that for weeks. It's about time.
Thanks, Justin. I agree. I would just ask Kelly for some direction there as far as, like I said, I would like to have at least 2 school board members to reach out to other districts and find out some information, how they're doing it, what's going on. And I'm also open to the consultant, but I don't want to put the cart before the horses. There's something that we could do right now, or something we should do in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think, Matt, it's imperative that if we want to set this as a goal, that we have a subcommittee of the school committee that's charged with the responsibility of looking at some of the information that we have, and also determining what the scope of the project would be when we sit down and talk to a consultant. I mean, that definitely is going to determine the cost. It's going to be transparent, as I always am. It's going to be a tall order to have this ready to go by the end of next school year. I mean, I've been involved in these changes many years in my career, and that's a fast track. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I mean, it's a target. I'm not sure whether it's attainable or not, but the most important thing is that we get started with a subgroup, map out some parameters in terms of what we would like to explore, and look at what we've done. And then, one of the most important parts of moving forward is getting our input from our various stakeholders. I mean, that is key in order to be successful in any change of this magnitude. People are creatures of habits, and what sometimes is perplexing to me as an educational leader and superintendent is support from the state, unless in terms of regional units or whatever you want to compartmentalize, is somewhat imperative to the success of this. We are really tied into different schools, especially with sharing athletic programs with other schools, competing with other schools, and we don't always compete with the same schools for every sport. So it becomes pretty convoluted. And one of the challenges is making sure that whatever we do, we have to ensure that our students have that opportunity when they have away games or when teams are coming to our district, that they can do that in a way that still promotes academic education and allows them to take part in athletic and co-curricular activities. I have inherited districts where there were time changes and didn't last very long, where students were missing the last period of classes to travel to play a sport. Well, we are an academic institution, and we need to make sure that our kids get the education that they need to be successful. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of things in my career, and we just have to make sure that we take all of these things into account. It's much harder to do if we don't have buy-in from various partners that we interact with virtually on a daily basis. So, I'm not saying it can't be done, but we just have to be mindful of that as we're forging ahead.
Well, so Kelly, I agree with you. I think those are all things we'll have to consider, and that's, I think, what our process would uncover over the coming months. But you mentioned that people are creatures of habit. For I think a real benefit of this last year is our town has gotten in the habit of paying attention to school committee issues and to being really engaged. I think this is the time to have this discussion, because people are engaged and they're thinking, and we've gone through a year, as our educators just explained, of making changes that seemed kind of weird at first, but then we also are beneficial. We may decide not to do something that I will be okay with that if that's our decision, but I think this is the moment to do it. And I'd like to think that if we get a process in place, that it's reasonable to think we can make a decision over that we implement, 17 months from now. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong a lot. But I think this is the moment. Thanks, Matt. Matt seconds that. But I think this is the time to have discussion, and I'd love to be part of it if we could.
Thanks, and I appreciate your transparency, Kelly. I definitely understand that it may not be something that's possible for the 2022-2023 school year, but we are at a point now. We have a brand new board. You got Timolin and Brad at least for another 2 years, and Jen and Justin for another 3 years. I think this is the time to start this conversation, because I do think there's an appetite on this board, and I think that there's enough interest in the community to make it worthwhile. So what I'm thinking is that possibly having two board members to meet with Dr. Clenchey and Steve and kind of figure out a process for this. Would that be something that we'd be amenable to? All right. So I guess I'm asking for two members. This is going to be, and I'm just going to say this is a lot of work. I've seen it. It's a lot of work to get into this. So if you're willing to delve into this area, let me know, and we can form the subcommittee.
I'm not ready to step up and say I want to be part of the subcommittee. To be honest, I'm very interested in the topic. I want to contribute. I don't know that I have a ton of extra time to give to this, but I'm being honest. Maybe I can be. Maybe it's not two of us. Maybe it's three. I don't know. I want to help, and it's an important issue, I think, to me and to our town and our kids. But I'm not sure I'm ready to devote that kind of commitment right now.
All right. Thanks. I appreciate that. Brad?
No, go ahead, Brad.
Justin, go ahead.
I'll say that I wasn't thinking I was going to need to be on the subcommittee, but I'm happy to do it. I'm on the budget subcommittee, so I was thinking that as a member of that, how this would play into the finances and possibly the need for increased busing, that I would be getting involved anyways. So if I need to be one of the two people on this committee, I'm totally fine with it. And I don't think we want to put more than two on it so that we don't have any quorum or open meeting law violations. So I'm happy to be one of the two, unless the three of you are, really surprise me and are fighting me for it.
All right. You say something, Brad?
Yeah, I'm willing to do it too. This summer's, I have to travel some to help with my mom on some things, but I'll be around, and it's important. I'm happy to work on this, unless Tim wants to boot me out of the spot.
I have PMBC, which we've got Shaker Lane coming down the line.
Yeah. No, I'll step up.
Okay.
And I don't know, I don't want to violate any open meeting laws, obviously, but I'm real good at task-oriented stuff. Like if I can help with, hey, put me on a research project, specific tasks that I can help deliver, like with deliverables, I'm more than happy to do that. And we can somehow talk about this offline without violating open meeting laws. But anyway, I can contribute. I appreciate you guys stepping up to this and want to help any way I can.
Thanks. And I appreciate everyone putting themselves out there in that regard. Brad, I'm going to say you're on the subcommittee, and Justin, if you're okay with it, I can do it. If you feel you're too busy with it, I don't mind doing it. So I could work with Brad as part of the subcommittee to research school start times. So I stepped away from budget this year, so I don't mind. And then Brad and I feel comfortable, could handle it and keep everyone else in the loop.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you guys for stepping up for that.
All right. So I guess the next step would be we'll reach out, or Dr. Clenchey can reach out to us to set a time that we can kind of meet, and we can figure out where we go from there.
Sounds good.
And maybe to Jen's point, if our next meeting is our last meeting for the school year, then we can kind of just share our plans and what the structure of what we might want to do will look like moving forward, just so people are aware.
Right. Yeah, I think that's good. Before I move on to subcommittee reports and anybody who wants to speak, I'm trying to think, I'm drawing a blank, sorry. I did want to say that we had a change in the calendar about our retreat over the summer. I think that's something we have to vote on. So originally it was scheduled that we voted on, it would be August 19th and 20th. Is that right? Or was it 19th and 20th. And we're now proposing to change that. I believe, I'm just talking with other board members, that the 12th and 13th of August is going to work best for all of us. So I would need a motion to make that change.
I'll make a motion to change the retreat to August 12th and 13th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Go with Justin,
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Timlin,
Timlin Rossius, yes.
Jen,
Jen Gold, yes.
Brad,
Brad Austin, yes.
and Matt Hunt votes yes as well. Let's see. All right, interested citizens. I could not think of the words. So we're going to move on to interested citizens. Do we have any hands up, Dorothy?
We do not have any hands raised.
Oh,
No.
this is like a first, I think, in months that we have.
Matt, by the
Raise
way,
it.
that retreat is in Cabo, right? Just to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, we are. It's going to be awesome. I am going to be doing some mindful meditation, leading it for you guys. A little hot yoga. It'll be awesome. So
I'm in.
you guys will all love it.
Second.
All right. Subcommittee reports. I forgot it last time was because it wasn't on here. So I'm going to start with CPAC, Brad.
Well, I'm glad you did. And you'll be glad you did too, because CPAC has a lot coming up. CPAC has, on June 8th, they have meetings with interested parents and school liaisons, 2 separate meetings on Google Meets, which you can find through the Littleton, Massachusetts Special Education family page on Facebook. There's one for a little middle school and high school, and one for Russell Street and Shaker Lane. And we heard tonight just how active these liaisons already are, and I think this will be a great tool for people who are trying to figure out what the summer and what next year will look like. So if your child's on an IEP or a 504, you think they should be, and you're trying to make plans for the next year, this is a great chance to talk to liaisons and figure out how you're going to move forward with that. There's one on June 10th for those who have children in out-of-district placements, and they'll be meeting with Lynn Snow and as well. And then on June 15th, there's a business meeting for CPAC, and everybody's welcome to that as well. I have another update. Do you want me to do it? It's not CPAC related though. Do you want me to hold off to the end?
No, go ahead.
No, I've been told by a member of the Littleton, the Honor Society, that they're doing a blood drive, and there's still spaces available if you want to help people and you have extra blood. On Tuesday at the high school, you have to sign up in advance, but we can get you information if you need it. But it's during school hours between, I think, 8:30 and 2. Help people out.
Awesome. Yeah, I think all school committee members should go down and donate their blood. PMBC.
No update.
All right. Budget.
No budget update, but Steve, I would love to try to just get maybe a meeting on the calendar, since we got a new budget subcommittee member, and before we sort of take a break for the summertime. So if we could get something going, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll send you an email. We'll coordinate.
Thank you.
Okay. Policy subcommittee.
We have 3 first readings. We met and we decided we're going to go through section B of the policies, which is school board governance and operations, because they haven't been reviewed in a while.
Okay.
Do I need to read these? Or
What's the protocol on this, Kelly? Does she need to read them, or?
Well, I mean, they're really short policies, so I'm sure everybody's had a chance to take a look at them. So you can, if you're open it up for discussion, and if there's no discussion, I would just move to first reading. In policies like this too, you do have the option. It's a judgment call. There are no changes, and if there are no suggestions, you can actually do first and second reading in the same night. But sometimes I think given it 2 weeks is a good thing as well prior to the second reading. But you do have the option of doing 2 readings if you so choose.
I can pull these up on the screen if so desired. Just let me know.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at these?
there are no changes to any of them.
Okay. In that case, I'll accept a motion if anyone wants to, for the first reading of the following reviewed policies? BA, BB, BBA.
Go ahead, Dorothy, start singing.
I move that we accept these three policies for the first reading.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Brad,
Brad Austin votes yes.
Timlin,
Timlin Rossius, yes.
Jen,
Jen Gold, yes.
Justin,
Justin McCarthy, yes.
and Matt Hunt votes yes as well. Okay, that is our full agenda. We do not require an executive session tonight. Our next school committee meeting is on June 17th. And if you missed it at the beginning of the meeting, our graduation for high school students has been moved from Friday night to Saturday morning at 10:30 at Alumni Field due to the possibility of thunderstorms and rain. So,
Town meeting is the following Saturday, just as a reminder as well.
thank you. All right. I will now take a motion to adjourn unless people want to sit and talk for a while.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. This is also a roll call vote. Jen,
Jen Gold, yes.
Timlin,
Timlin Rossius, yes.
Justin,
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Brad,
Brad Austin, yes.
and Matt Hunt votes yes as well. Everyone enjoy their weekend, and if you have a graduating senior, and enjoy graduation. I think it's going to be a very exciting graduation. Restrictions are lifted in a lot of ways, so they we'll be outside. Masks are going to be optional, so I think we're
Matt,
in
are
good
you
shape.
giving Lexi her, are you gonna hand Lexi her diploma?
I don't think Lexi wants me to give her diploma. In fact, I don't think she really wanted anyone to give her a diploma. She just wanted to kind of
She
leave
wanted it mailed to her.
Timlin, congrats. Good
Thank
job.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great
Not
night,
me,
everybody.
her.
Don't
Good
care,
night,
everyone.
everyone.
Don't script a speech, Matt.
Mike Fontanella is giving the speech, so tune in.
Oh, is he?
He is. In recognition for his many years of service, Mike is going to give one last graduation speech. He's much more inspirational than I am, so that's a good thing.
That's fantastic.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.